Welcome to Financial Services 101 for the Out for Undergraduate Business Conference. I'm Leo Vergara. I have a political science degree from the University of Florida, and I've been working in financial services for about 11 years. So let's go through the agenda. What does a financial service firm look like? Then we're going to walk through some overview of typical roles. First, sales, trading, and research. Second, investment management. And third, investment banking. And finally, we're going to discuss what some of our colleagues in financial services typically do after a career in financial services. So let's address the first question. What does a typical firm look like? In this chart, you'll see all the main areas that financial services operate in. The ones circled in red are the ones we're going to be focusing on for the purposes of this presentation. So please take a look. So let's talk about sales, trading, and research. Sales and trading makes up two familiar functions revolving around the exchange of securities. Essentially, the sales department is the one that deals directly with clients, talks to clients about trading ideas, and develops the investment themes with the clients. The trading department is really more an internal function that works together with the sales team to manage the risk on the balance sheet of the firm. The research department, on the other hand, creates and publishes reports that creates the fundamental ideas behind what the sales and trading department does with the client. So they might produce reports on companies, on sectors, or any trade ideas that supports what sales and trading is executing for clients. So you might ask yourself, who considers sales, trading, and research? Or who should consider it? And you should consider it if you have a real interest in markets, if you already follow them, if investing appeals to you, if you really like client relationships, if quantitative analysis is your forte, and if you enjoy statistical analysis. I would say those are the key factors to considering a sales and trading and research position. What is a typical day for sales and trading analyst? I won't really go through every minute, but I do want you to pay attention to one very important fact. And the fact is, from 9:30 until 4, which is when US equity markets are open, you are pretty much spending all of your time at the desk, including lunch. Also note the time at which you start with market updates and the time you leave your office, which there's some leeway and flexibility, but that's more or less the schedule of a typical analyst day. Let's compare that with a typical day for a research analyst. Please note that between market hours, 9:30 and 4 p.m., the research analyst is not necessarily spending that amount of hours at the trading desk. Instead, they're communicating with the sales and traders who are working together with them to use their research to talk to clients. So it's quite different. Also note the time they leave their office and the last thing they do before leaving. Let's go to the second area of focus, investment management. This is divided into two sections, private wealth management and institutional asset management. What is private wealth management? Private wealth management provides comprehensive wealth management solutions to ultra-high net worth individual clients. These are people and their families. Typically, minimum assets for these types of services require $10 million of investable assets. This will vary by firm, but I just want you to be aware of more or less what we're discussing. So what types of services do private wealth management firms provide to their clients? In general, we do everything from very basic banking services, such as having bank accounts and credit cards, all the way to management large investment portfolios. Also, assisting clients in investing the liquidity from the sale of a business. So maybe a family would sell a business for a large amount, and they need a private wealth manager to take over the portfolio that they will invest for their family and for future generations. This is a typical day for a private wealth management analyst. Essentially, you come into work, you respond to your emails, you'll prepare client presentations for client advisors who will then meet with clients or have a conference with clients in which many times analysts participate and can oftentimes hear how the advice is delivered to clients. The second subset under investment management is institutional asset management, which essentially provides investment management, risk management, and advisory services to clients looking to invest and grow their capital. So you might ask, what types of clients are these? Typically corporations, pensions, foundations, endowments, and other institutions. And they typically look for very specific services. So you might be developing a strategy for a client that's only an equity strategy, so only to invest in stocks and in a particular style, so perhaps passive or active. So it's very, very specific. The other thing is typically an analyst will specialize in one asset class. So they will not cover multi-asset classes, they will cover one. They will specialize in either equity or fixed income, for example, and cover their clients that are interested in that type of service. It might include portfolio analytics or market valuations, or perhaps they will provide some portfolio management services to that particular client. So what does a typical day in institutional asset management look like? Basically, it consists of portfolio reviews and strategy discussion of markets with clients. So what you'll be doing is working with the portfolio managers to prepare all the materials that are necessary to have these discussions with clients, both to prepare for new pitches and to review portfolios. The third and final area of focus is investment banking. So let's talk about that. What is investment banking? Investment banks typically are financial intermediaries that provide corporations, governments, and other institutional clients with a full spectrum of solutions for their strategic, advisory, financing, and risk management needs. What does this mean to you? What do they do for them? They really facilitate on mergers and acquisitions, meaning when a company wants to merge with another company or maybe acquire another company, the investment bank might facilitate that or be on the side of both the seller or the buyer. They might also issue debt for example, a government. A government is looking to finance themselves in US dollars. They come to an investment bank, they issue debt for them. Or a company that's looking for capital markets to finance a new operation or an acquisition through a public offering, issuing stock essentially in the market, is another function investment banks provide. What does a typical day for an investment banking analyst look like? And rather than focusing on the hours, which we all know can vary significantly, let's focus on what we really do as analysts in investment banking. And typically it's all about deal flow and it's all about business. So you'll be providing analytics, so perhaps valuating a company and doing all the presentations that the senior people are going to use to present to the client, and essentially making your deal the most attractive is what's going to make the business happen for the bank or not. And finally, what's next? What do people with experience in large financial institutions often pursue after their careers? There's a number of answers, but typically it's private equity or hedge funds, and that could be both in sales or on the analytics side. That depends on which area of focus you probably spent a few years in. Other potential fields include entrepreneurship, product development, and even working in nonprofits. Well, that concludes Financial Services 101. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you at the Out for Undergraduate Business Conference 2013. Thanks.